Hey guys, welcome back to Zane Customs. In this week's episode, we're going to be making a skeleton horse from Minecraft. If any of you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen this sculpt. I posted it back at the beginning of the year, back when I just had Forager before I had Zbrush. But it's just a dragon horse hybrid that I kind of came up with. And since I already had that, I basically used that as a base mesh for my skeleton horse. So that's what I'm doing here, just taking that and smoothing it out and remeshing it until I get the basic shape of a skeleton. So for any of you who watch my previous videos, I've been talking about going more realistic or more cartoony with my sculpts, and I kind of decided to go more realistic, which is the whole point of all these videos, is do realistic variants on Minecraft mobs. But I was kind of toying with the idea of, or wondering if you guys think I should do it more cartoony or more boxy, just to pay a little bit more homage to the original Minecraft mobs. But I'm thinking I'm going more realistic with it. I'll still have little homages here, and you'll see later on in this video, like the skeleton heads, they're still a little bit more boxy than a real skeleton head and things like that. Or like with this skeleton, I eventually will put it in Zbrush and cut some holes in his rib cage so that he can have individual ribs. And you'll see I'm not anatomically correct with it. He ends up with a couple ribs, not nearly as much as he's supposed to have. So that's kind of what I'm leaning to. I'm trying to make it look more realistic, but with a tiny bit of Minecraft cartoonish thrown in there. And now here we are in Zbrush, and I did most of the block out work in Forager, so all I really have to do here is do some final detailing, cutting any holes in the mesh, for example the mouth, the eyes, or the rib cages you'll see here in a minute. And then again, Zbrush is more powerful than the Forager app is, so I can go in and add a lot more detail and texturing. But aside from that, it's just basically cleanup work and then posing. When you cut into a mesh, depending on what item you use or what shape you use to cut out your hole, as you can see here, I took a sphere and flattened it and stretched it to get that kind of a crescent moon shape, and then I cut that out of his rib cage. But when you do it, it cuts a perfect hole, so it has sharp edges. So with anything really, whether it's cutting holes out of a mesh, or if you go in and like repose a mesh, you always have to go in afterwards and do a bit of cleanup work, which is what I was just doing there. And once I'm satisfied with the overall sculpt, then I can throw in some of my previous Minecraft models, basically just to get a sense of scale. But in this one in particular, I'm actually using the old skeleton model and reposing him on top of the skeleton horse, so looks like he's actually got somebody riding him. And reposing is actually quite easy with a sculpt like this or my previous Minecraft skeleton, because there's not as much material you have to worry about bending or doing something you don't want. It's just a skeleton, so the hinge points are pretty obvious. You don't have skin folds or nothing like that, so you just mask off the bone you want to move and move it, and there's a little bit of cleanup work, but it's way easier than pretty much any other model I've ever had to repose. And for those of you who haven't seen my previous video sculpting the Minecraft skeleton, I'm going to throw in a quick time lapse here. I just condensed it down quite a bit just to show you basically what I did, because I'm going to be using this model. Like I said, he's going to be riding on top of the horse, so this is a really quick time lapse. It's hard to tell what's going on, but if you want to see this video, you can check out my account. I have a full like 10-minute or so video about sculpting him. But when I go ahead and add him on top of the skeleton horse, I just basically use the skeleton himself. I don't use the bow or anything like that. It's just the skeleton. And I wanted to go for a almost creepy look to the, it's a skeleton on top of a skeleton horse, so it's already kind of creepy in that sense, but I wanted him to look kind of menacing. That's kind of how I came up with this pose. But on top of wanting him to look creepy, I kind of like the aesthetic of just being skeletons, having everything kind of fallen. So that's also why I had his arms fallen and he's like looking down. It's almost like kind of a somber pose. If you could just imagine a skeleton on top of a skeleton horse riding through a field in the middle of the night. It's like kind of creepy, kind of somber, energy, and that's what I was going for here. And now all I'm doing is just going in and texturing the skeleton horse to match the skeleton, and then painting. But this ended up being a pretty quick sculpt. You know, all I'm doing here now is adding a base with some grass and then adding in some light to get some good renders, but I ended up getting it done pretty quick, considering a lot of the heavy work being this original skeleton was done. So I decided to also work on a few other sculpts this week just to help flesh out this video. So here you can see me starting work on the wither skeleton. And again, this is why I had the time lapse in earlier of me sculpting the original bow and arrow Minecraft skeleton, because I end up using that model a lot throughout this video, just repurposing it. And for this one I did change some details. If you look at the wither skeleton in game, it's black and it's taller, but other than that, the only real difference I could tell is it looks like it has some lines kind of carved into the side of its head, or at least that's how I interpreted it. So that's all I did, and I also gave it a wider jaw, but other than that, it's the same sculpt, just larger. And here you can see me working on a stone sword. And this was probably the funnest process throughout this whole week of working. I've made like one sword before in Forger, and Forger, again, not nearly as powerful as Zbrush, so it didn't turn out well. But with Zbrush, you can do so much more, and I know there's a whole other side of Zbrush where you could do a lot of flat surface modeling. I haven't learned any of that yet, so I've just been kind of using some different tricks. Like right here you can see I kind of cut away a design I wanted into these blocks, and then I'm going to use those blocks to cut away from the actual sword to give the sword a tip. It's really confusing, kind of hard to tell what's going on, especially in a quick time lapse like this, but basically to get all the shapes I just created other shapes and then divided that from the overall sword. So like the lines going down the center, I just created a cylinder, stretched it out, put it inside the sword mesh itself, and then deleted that. And it ends up working really well. You can get a really good look. And I'm going for a more realistic version of this, but I still like the Minecraft, the blockiness and the whole sword design. I thought I could carry that over and just make it look more realistic, which I think it turned out pretty well. I'm sure a lot of people can tell you this, that sculpt or work in Zbrush, at least from all the videos I've watched on YouTube, a lot of people say this too, but for me, hands are the hardest part of any sculpt, and skeleton fingers are no different. So I was not about to start again with this one, so just like the body, I pulled these hands in from the previous sculpt and just reposed them and made them work. But yeah, skeleton hands, human hands, any hands, they're always the hardest part for me. And for you, those of you who have played the game, you'll know that the wither skeletons are found in the nether, which is basically, it's like Minecraft's version of hell, kinda. But you find them in the nether in nether fortresses, which are made out of nether brick, which is a whole other thing. But basically all I'm trying to say is I wanted the space to look like it was a nether fortress, because again, that's where they'd be found. So that's why I'm giving this base, making it look like he's walking on some stone brick. And then once I color it, you'll see it'll be even more convincing, but that's kind of what I'm going for the base. And in the game, the wither skeletons just kind of wander around until they get you in their line of sight, and then they'll charge at you and try and kill you. So that's kind of why I went for this pose. Also, I like the idea of just a massive skeleton dragging a massive sword, so heavy that it's like carving into the ground behind it, and just kind of aimlessly wandering around. And then, you know, I'd imagine if he saw a human, he would pick it up and go in for an attack. But that's just kind of the idea I was going for there with that pose. Okay, now here you can see me working on my third and final sculpt for this week's video. and that is going to be the skeleton horseman. And you may be thinking, didn't we just see you work on the skeleton horseman? Yes and no. So the previous skeleton horseman, which is actually what I'm working on here, is just a basic skeleton riding on a horse, or a skeleton horse. But if you come across them in the game, a skeleton horse, it's actually usually 4 horsemen with diamond helmets and bow and arrows, and they're attacking you. So I thought it'd be cool to do a whole diorama of all 4 skeleton horsemen. And also, I sell all my sculpts on Etsy, and you can check that out in the link below if you're interested. So that's why I did the previous one as more like a cheaper version. If someone just liked my skeleton horse and skeleton model, then they can just buy that. But if they want the full 4 horsemen set, then it'd be a more expensive variant. But that's what I'm working on here, and I'm reposing all the horses so I can get, I don't want them all in the same pose, so I got like one of them on its hind legs and some other ones looking more like they're running and all that. And then once I get those done, I'm going to go in and throw in more skeletons and get them and give them all bow and arrows and all that like they have in the games. So like I said earlier in the video, I was really able to bust through a lot of these models because I had all the other models already completed. I mean, I had the skeleton, which I used through all of these, and I did some slight variations in the case of the wither skeleton, like sizing them up and adding some small little differences here and there. But besides that, I just used the same skeleton model throughout all of them. The only other thing I really did new was the diamond helmet and the skeleton horse. And even the skeleton horse, I started from the basic model of the dragon horse I showed you earlier. So it was a pretty quick process, and I was able to bust through quite a bit of models this week. Here you can see me working on the diamond helmet, and I went back and forth on the diamond helmet a lot. Like, it's condensed down here, but I spent a lot of time on this helmet because I couldn't settle on a design. I was going for blocky, then I went for just like a realistic helmet design for a while, and eventually I settled with this. And it doesn't necessarily look like a diamond. I mean, aside for the blue, which I got from Minecraft, but I was just basically trying to give it a lot of faceted edges, so it looked like it could have been carved out of a big chunk of diamond. And to me, it looks more like it's obsidian, like blue obsidian, which isn't exactly what I'm going for, but I still like the look of it. But let me know down in the comments what you think, if you think this is a cool look for the diamond helmet, or if you'd prefer it to look the more classic Minecraft, more boxy and more tightened together. Had such a hard time with it because the actual Minecraft model is, again, it's just a box. And it's just blue. There's no other detail. So I wasn't sure if they had a specific helmet they were basing it off of, because it was just a box. So I ended up settling with this. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of that. This is probably the only part of all these models that I wasn't too sure about. But now that I got the diamond helmet done, all I gotta do is go in and add in some different hands for different poses, add in the helmets themselves, and then the bows. And then this sculpt is pretty much done after that. I did have quite a bit of trouble trying to render out some photos because I think it's just too much polygons, too much processing going on, that it kept crashing. So I wasn't able to get as high of quality photos as I would like, but I still ended up getting some photos, and I'll pop those up here in a sec. Yeah, I'm actually quite happy with all 3 sculpts I've done this week. Let me know in the comments what you think, and in particular, again, let me know what you think about the diamond helmet. And also, I was thinking it'd be kind of cool to add a lightning bolt in behind these guys for the 4 horsemen, because that's what happens. The lightning bolt comes down and then these all 4 appear. So let me know if you think that would be cool, or if it'd be too much overkill for the actual model. So one thing I wanted to bring up real quick is I do these Minecraft variants, and I give myself a week to do them, and then I make a video, and I try to put out the video every Monday. Sometimes it's a day late, but that's kind of my plan. but I'm getting a little burned out on Minecraft, and I got a lot of other sculpts that are in the works, and I give myself a week with these Minecraft ones, but some of these other ones I spend a lot longer on, put like hundreds of hours into, and I recorded all of those too. So I'm probably gonna next week post a video about one of those, and then eventually I will get back into doing the Minecraft ones again, because I've already got some other Minecraft ones in the works. But just let me know what you think about that. If you want to see some other things, just to let you know, my next week's video will be about Zuko from the Avatar The Last Airbender series, and kind of a more realistic variant of that, just like these are, but just my take on them. But let me know if you like that idea, or if you just want me to stick to Minecraft. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing. I do a new video every week. And check out my Instagram and my Etsy. They are both at Zane Customs as well. Thanks for watching.